Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this.
Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean,
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
that's a pill with two screens and it's open and you gotta swallow it.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Behind-the-scenes camera crap.
Here, tell us about courage, Phil. Tell us about courage.
I am Nadella. Well, I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing. Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with Landon.
Hello.
And Caleb.
We don't talk about iPhones. No, no, no. We don't talk about iPhones.
Pretty sure we do.
As I say, that's probably
That
a
is-
constant.
That is all we're going to talk about.
I really enjoyed it. I was not expecting that at all, so you threw me off a little, but I enjoyed it.
Oh, good.
I did. It was pretty good. My kids know that song, but it's
Oh, yes.
Bruno. But yeah,
It's a banger. Let's be honest.
so yeah, I get it. I like it. Well, why don't we dive into it? You let's get this over with here. See how
I guess.
happy you are about these iPhones.
Oh, goodness. So, listener, there was an Apple event this past week. I have already forgotten the name of it again. What did they...
Far out.
Far Out. That was...
Wow.
Yeah.
I had to remind you last week, too.
You did. You did. I watched it live on September 7th, and it's, it was the typical early September Apple event. Talked about iPhones, the Apple Watch, and they also talked about AirPods because, they sometimes do that. So I'm approaching this in a slightly different way, listener, than we have done Apple events in the past. I have written a paragraph or so about each of the things that they announced. And so I'm just gonna give you the facts. This is what was announced, and then we'll pause to get some opinions and have a little bit of discussion and get some thoughts on this stuff.
Well, I
so
have
we're
opinions.
yeah, there's gonna be a bit. We're gonna go ahead and start with the Apple Watch announcements. So, the new Series 8 from Apple has an updated system on chip, the S8, which includes a range of new sensors and updated processing capabilities. These enable mainly iterative improvements over last year's fully redesigned Series 7. Alongside general improvements to the screen and to new watch faces and stuff like that, the Series 8 now includes precise body temperature sensing, which Apple has used to implement retrospective ovulation tracking, which a feature that Apple has reiterated is fully encrypted and totally private. Updated gyroscopes and accelerometers are combined with existing inputs such as the barometer and the speakers in order to enable, via machine learning, crash detection, which will allow the watch to detect when you've been involved in a serious car wreck and contact emergency services in the event that you're unable to do so yourself. These improvements start at the same $400 price point as the Series 7, and there's a new SE model with the same S8 chip and the same basic set of feature improvements, though it does lack some of the screen updates, and it is constructed of cheaper materials overall, which will continue to retail for $250. By far, the more interesting Apple Watch news is the Apple Watch Ultra, an enormous 49mm flat-screened Apple device designed for extreme sports and harsh environments. Boasting a physical design tailored around the needs of those wearing gloves and a titanium frame that kind of wraps up around the front crystal to prevent corner impacts to the screen, the Ultra is a dramatic and possibly divisive design change from the standard watch. However, between its tolerance for extreme heat and cold, its drastically improved water resistance, and a new certification as a fully featured diving computer, the Ultra's appearance is very likely to be the last thing potential customers care about. It also features a new dual-band GPS for precise location data, even in challenging locales like dense clusters of skyscrapers or heavy overhead foliage. There's only one version of the watch that includes both cellular connectivity and GPS, and that will retail for $800. So that's the Apple Watches. Thoughts? I know Landon has some.
I do. So, all the minor updates to the Series 8 and SE I do really like. The Series 8 I don't think is a big enough update from the 7 or even the... Like, I've got the Series 6, I don't feel a need to update to the 8. The only
Yeah.
thing that I would benefit from in that would be the slightly larger screen than what I've got, which I would also get
Yep.
by going to the 7. So
Yes.
to me, it's not a big thing. I do like the car crash detection,
that is cool.
which I thought that was already a thing, but I got thinking about it, and it's a thing that's on Android devices. They use the gyroscope in the phones to recognize car crash detection and stuff like that. So that's where
Right.
I was thinking. I was like, I could have
Yeah.
swore this was a thing, but no, it's not a thing on Apple Watch or iPhone, but it is now on the Apple Watch, and I do like that. The SE, I love the updates to the SE. Especially,
Yes.
like, it's got a slightly larger display than the Series
Yep.
3, which is basically what it's replacing. It's not necessarily replacing the previous Gen SE because it's at the same price. Well, it's not the same price what the 3 was. They got rid of the 3, finally.
Thank heavens.
And at $250 at
Holy
the
cow.
SE, like, honestly, if you're buying a new watch, if you don't, I'm trying to think of how to really word this, but the SE, I think, is the best bang for your buck in any of these
Yes.
watches. It's
Absolutely.
not that much less of a watch than the Series 8, in my opinion.
Yep.
And for $250, it's a great deal.
And like I said, it gets the S8. It gets the majority of the features that the S8 or that the Watch 8 Series 8 has, and it just it's made of cheaper materials. It has an aluminum ring around it, but the back is plastic. So, some kind of polycarbonate and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's a cheaper watch for sure, but $250 to get basically all the same features that you care about as the new watch. Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with that. The screen is a little bit smaller. It's a little bit worse, in general overall performance, but you do still get features like the always on display and so on and so forth. So yeah, the SE is a really solid watch, good value. And I think that you're probably right. Basically, if you're on like a Series 5 or a Series 6 and you didn't see anything with the Series 7 that made you go, ooh, I want to upgrade to that, then there's probably not going to be any reason to upgrade to the Series 8 either.
Yeah.
It's just not that different from the Series 7. But if you're sitting on like a 5 or a Series 4 or something like that, and you're like, man, the Series 7 was actually looking really good, maybe I should upgrade, then the Series 8's just a little bit better than that for the same money. So yeah, you may as well do it. It's a perfectly fine watch. It's just not a compelling upgrade for most of the recent watches.
Right. The other thing that they did mention that is coming to multiple watches, the Series 4 and newer, is a new low power mode.
Yes,
and
that's
I
true.
am so happy for that because right now the battery saver mode basically turns your watch off. Turns I can't have the always on display on. I can't do anything unless it pushes the button and then it turns on this like old school digital watch face. It's just for a few seconds so you can kind of see what the time is. But then if you want to do anything else on it, you have to turn it back on, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like this low power mode will turn off most of the functionality to the watch. It'll turn the screen off, but it will still do certain things and save you a lot of battery. And that is coming, like I said, to Series 4 and newer. And I like that. I'm looking forward to that. That's pretty much all my thoughts on the regular watches. The Ultra,
Yeah. So weird.
So
that thing.
the Ultra is the weirdest looking watch I've ever seen, but it's kind of growing on me in a weird way. It's not the watch for me. I'm not going to buy it. But
it would in fact look like it's growing on you, let's be honest. Just a giant wart on the back of your wrist.
It's true. The one thing that I like the most about it is the flat display, the flat glass on it, instead of like what the other watches are where the glass kind of curves around to shape the body.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously going to be more durable just for that, for one.
Yeah.
It's sapphire crystal, so it's more durable. I mean, you can get that on the Series 8, on the higher end Series 8 watches. But I love the flatness of it. The titanium is nice. I like the size of the screen. Like the display is bigger. I like that.
Yes.
But again, a 49 millimeter case is quite large.
It's huge.
But with what it's competing against, that's not really that big. It's competing against Garmin watches that are actually bigger than this.
Yes. And honestly, it's competing with them in terms of like size and feature set.
Yeah.
And beating them in some features for less money, which is wild from Apple. Like They showed up on the scene, launched a product. It's all like, hey, we're competing with these people over here in the feature set. It costs less. What?
Yeah. So
like, what?
It's $800 and it's competing. I was seeing that for most watches, most people that are going to be buying this are coming from or would have been looking at a Garmin that either is about the same price or more. Like in that
more like $1,000 range,
$850,000 range, and that's what we were expecting this to be. Was a like $1,000. When I saw it $799, I'm like, holy crap! Good job, Apple.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I wanted to point out on this watch, particularly, is that they're claiming 36 hours of battery in regular use, which is double what any of the other watches get, which is fantastic. And then up to 60 hours on the power saver, whatever mode, that the low, whatever I called it, I can't remember. Low power mode, that's what it's called.
Yeah, low power mode, I think is all they're calling it, which is weird. They didn't come up with a fun name for that, but they did for other. Anyways, we'll get to
that. Yeah. And because this has a much bigger display, you can have a watch face with up to 8 complications, which is absolutely insane. But
that's a lot.
Like it's called the Wayfinder watch face, and for the people that are going to use it, it's actually very beneficial to have all the things on it. It's for like your extreme outdoors guy that is going to go hiking or mountaineering or those type of major type things. It's got 2 different GPS things on. It's got L1 and L5 GPS hardware built in, and the main reason they did that is because they were saying, so they worked with a lot of different people that don't buy Apple Watch that would if it had certain features. And that's what they put in, basically. But a lot of people the example they gave was the Boston Marathon. People were complaining they couldn't really accurately track what they were doing GPS-wise with the Boston Marathon because they're going behind buildings and stuff like that, where they're going to lose a lot of this GPS signal. But with 2 different GPS antenna basically inside this watch, it's going to make that a lot easier.
Yeah. It's basically they've updated the GPS radio to work on 2 different bands. So L1 is the standard GPS band that we've been using since like the 80s. Yeah. L5 is a new band, new series of frequencies supported by GPS satellites that is more accurate, and basically they'll be being able to use both of them means they can use them to kind of triangulate their position between 2 different types of satellites. So more accuracy. So yeah, that's their dual band GPS, and I don't know how much of it, like honestly, the Watch Ultra is exactly what Apple pitched it as. It is not the watch for everyone.
No.
Most people shouldn't even think about buying this watch. No. Listener, you probably shouldn't even think about buying this watch. Like, there's not a good reason to do it for the vast majority of people. But for the people that do care, it's great. Like, it's a really, really compelling device in terms of the feature set and the price. And like I mentioned, the thing has diver computer certification. Like, it's not just like, hey, this can work as a diver computer, kind of, sort of, maybe. It's certified. Like, they went through the regulatory bodies that define that sort of thing and got the thing freaking certified at a technical level as, yes, this has the necessary hardware and capabilities to function as a fully fledged diving computer. And then they partnered up with the folks that make diving computers to build out a software experience for the Watch Ultra that will make it a really good diving computer. And so that was actually probably the funniest take, because I can't remember the name of the company because I don't dive.
I think it was Oceanic.
Oceanic, was that it?
I think something
so.
Like that, yeah.
My favorite take on this is I think it might have been TechCrunch posted an article right after the event that's all like, Oceanic needs to be really concerned about the Watch Ultra. It's going to steal all of their market share and stuff like that. And somebody tweeted that and was all like, does anybody want to tell them that Apple partnered with Oceanic to make the Watch Ultra?
Oh, jeez.
It's like, Wow, good job paying attention to the event, guys, because they had that dude's CEO, literally the CEO of this company, had like a 5-minute segment talking about the stuff they had done for their app on the Watch Ultra and whatnot to make it a compelling diving computer. So yeah, the Watch Ultra is for the extreme people, you know, like, are you doing an expedition in Antarctica? You should probably think about the Watch Ultra. You know, are you doing an ultra marathon across the Sahara Desert? You should probably think about the Watch Ultra. If you're not doing stuff like that, you probably don't need the Watch Ultra. Let's just be honest.
Right. I think, like, if you are considering a Garmin watch,
yes,
then you should consider the Watch Ultra because they're very competitive. One other thing that I thought was, or a couple other things I thought were really cool. It's got, so if you're out hiking or whatnot, you can make a waypoint is what they call it. So you take you can push the action button as they're calling it. You can customize this button on the side to do certain things. And one of these is you can make a waypoint. So if you're going along, you push the button, it makes a point in your hike where you're at, and then it'll keep tracking you using GPS, obviously. But then if you get turned around or lost or you don't know exactly where you're at, it'll help you find your way back to where you were. So what you'd want to do is make a waypoint where you start, at least. If you don't make another one throughout your hike, that's fine. But definitely make that one, and it'll help you get back. So I love that. It also has an 86 decibel siren on this thing. So again, if you do get lost, you can turn that thing on, plug your ears because it's going to be pretty loud to you right next to you.
Yep.
But then people around you might be able to hear it and be able to find you really relatively easily that way. Yeah. And that's pretty cool.
They said it was something like 100 meter or 100 yard something.
Yeah.
Like easily audible over 100 yards or something like that. They had a number for it specifically. It wasn't enormous, you know, but 86 decibels is definitely enough to be audible 100 meters away in the open wilderness kind of thing. Yeah. If you were to turn this thing on in an enclosed room, you might damage your ears. Yeah. In fact, if you were to turn this on in an enclosed room, your watch would probably give you a warning about the noise of the area you're in. And that it's like, whoa, you're in a loud environment. You should probably get out.
I want someone to test that. Also, I get that notification on a regular basis so much that I turned it off on my watch because I work in a loud environment.
Yes, you also wear earplugs in that loud environment, do you not?
Well, I wear earbuds, which work is the same thing, but
yes.
But yeah, so I really like the Watch Ultra. It's not for me. It's not for most people, like Caleb was saying. It is for the person that was already considering a Garmin watch and you have an iPhone. Because again, you need to have an iPhone with this. But it's pretty cool. I actually do know somebody.
Super cool device.
I do know somebody that did pre-order this thing. And their main reasoning, I thought this was dumb, but their main reasoning was the battery life. And I kind of get that because, that's some people don't want an Apple Watch because the battery life is a day and a half at most, depending on how you're using it.
Yeah.
But so I kind of get it, but at the same time, like I'm not spending $700 just for extra battery life. If that's your thing, buy a Garmin for $500 that gets you a week.
Yeah, one of the cheap Garmins. Get one of the cheaper Garmins. Or heck, if that's really what you're after, I got this amazing technology called quartz timekeeping that I want to sell you. You can get like a $10 watch with a little button cell battery. It'll last for 6-8 months kind of thing. And that's the bad ones. The good ones will last a couple of years.
Yeah.
I tell you. Or if you really just want to spend a ridiculous amount of money on it, there's some self-winding Swiss watches that I could sell you too.
True story.
Yeah. Good times. But yes, that's the Apple Watch. Honestly, reasonable updates to most of the line. And the Watch Ultra is a really cool device that most people shouldn't buy. But yes. So on to the next thing. The AirPods Pro. So Apple has finally updated their highly regarded AirPods Pro. The AirPods Pros 2s, because I don't know where you're supposed to put the S in that name, feature the same basic design as the first generation, but include an additional extra small ear tip and now have touch controls integrated into the stem for volume adjustments in addition to the pressure controls that they had before. They feature this new H2 chip, which powers a new active noise canceling algorithm capable of what Apple says removing twice the noise of the last generation. Also present is a new adaptive version of their transparency mode, which was already kind of industry leading, but now will automatically cut out sudden loud noises as much as possible. And a host of other improvements to the speaker driver and the microphones that are supposed to improve obviously the noise canceling capability of it, the quality of the sound, the auditory input if you're using it for phone calls and stuff like that. New charging case for the device now will charge off of your Apple Watch charger in addition to Qi chargers. It also includes an integrated speaker for use with the Find My network. If you want to try and find the thing, it'll play a sound, and instead of playing that sound extra loud through the earbuds, it plays it through a dedicated speaker on the case. It also has a lanyard loop, though it doesn't come with any lanyards, but that's a thing. The H2 also boasts improved battery. Not a ridiculous improvement, but the earbuds alone will last up to 6 hours, and the case will provide up to 30 hours of listening. And the price stays at $250 for it. So not like a huge series of upgrades, no major design changes or anything like that, which is probably good. The design was good already. It was working for most people. People liked it a lot. So kept the design the same, iterative improvements to the hardware and the experience, and left the price the same. So if you're buying AirPods Pros, you get better devices for the same price as you were going to pay anyways. So solid.
Yes. My thoughts on these, about the same as what you just said. I actually pre-ordered some.
Yep.
Not from Apple. I bought them from Amazon because, one, they were available to me on Amazon before they were available on Apple's website. And two, I have an Amazon credit card that gets me cash back. And three, I had an Amazon gift card that took $50 off that price as well. So
perfect.
Better deal for me. Also,
yeah, that's fair.
I do love all these updates to the case in particular.
Yeah.
Like, I love that it charges. I hate that it still uses a lightning connector to charge.
That's
wired.
Yep.
I was really hoping that this would change that and go to USB-C, but no, they didn't do that. I love that it can also now use an Apple Watch charger, because I do like that it uses the Qi standard on there as well, so I can use my any Qi charger for that, which is nice. But there are times where, like right now, my earbuds that I have, I can charge with a Qi charger, so I use my MagSafe charger on those whenever I need to. But there are times where I need to charge my phone and my earbuds at the same time, but not my watch. But my current earbuds I can't do that with. So I will be able to do that like this, and I actually like that.
Yeah. I mean, it is a little silly to me that you still can't charge the watch with a Qi charger.
Right.
I feel like they ought to just make that change, and then you can just have a couple of Qi wireless chargers sitting around. But it is having intercompatibility inside of their own device lineup makes sense. Like, that's good.
The one thing that I probably won't I would test it out, but I won't probably use it unless it's actually good. But the touch control to change the volume, I've never used that. I've never had earbuds that do that, for one, but I just don't think I will use it because it's just not something. I hope I can turn it off. I will say that, because I could very easily see going to like just press the button on there to change, like pause or skip track or something like that, and it accidentally moving your volume down. So I'm hoping I can turn that off, because if that does happen, that's going to be really annoying really fast.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Touch controls on earbuds have a reputation for being kind of crap, because it's very difficult to, like, say, adjust the earbud in your ear without accidentally pausing your music or adjusting the volume or something like that. It's just not a very large surface in order for it to be reliable for those inputs. Now, the AirPods, whatever they are, having the stem is actually kind of useful, because that means you've got a little bit more space to work with for adjusting volume than you would on something like a Sony's XM, whatever their thing is called.
Yeah.
So that's nice. it is definitely possible that, yeah, you could go up to use the pressure-based controls and accidentally volume shift or something like that, and that would be really obnoxious. I will say, with stuff like this, because this is not a first that Apple is doing here, putting touch controls on earbuds. I think Microsoft might have actually been the first ones to do that with those dinner plates that you shoved into your ears that they had a while back. You remember those?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if those were the first either, but honestly, it's been a while is what I'm saying, at least like 3-4 years. And Apple is never the first to the board with any of this kind of thing, but usually when they implement it, it is just better than everybody else. They've like looked at all the problems everybody else was having, and they're not going to actually sell it to you until they have solved those specific problems. So I would be willing to bet that it'll be pretty reliable in terms of like being able to tell whether or not you're just adjusting the earbud, whether you're using the pressure controls, or whether you actually intended to change the volume. However, that doesn't mean that it's not going to cause other completely unrelated, unforeseen problems that other earbuds don't have because they don't have touch controls on a stem, for instance.
Right.
So, hopefully you can turn it off because it's entirely possible it might end up sucking, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, like, my wife's she's got the regular AirPods, the first generation ones, and they're touch controls all the way. They're not pressure sensitive. I don't know if you can do swipe for volume or not.
No, you can't.
Tap
it's
controls,
just tapping.
They work fine. Like my earbuds, they're Samsung Galaxy Buds, the first generation. They're touch controls. They work great. So I've never had issues with touch controls themselves. Even when I go to adjust them, perfectly fine.
Oh, that's good.
It's just
it's the volume control.
The complaint that
I've
it's the complaint that I've always heard is the swiping for volume that people always have issues with. So that's where I am hoping there's potentially an option to either turn this off or it works better than I'm expecting it to. But
we'll find out.
Yeah, we will find out because, like I said, I bought them. I like the built-in lanyard loop. And they do sell, Apple does sell a lanyard for these.
Yes.
And it's $13. So maybe don't buy that one.
Yeah, that seems a little ridiculous. Just look, go to your local thrift store, find an old digital camera, buy it for $2, pull the little lanyard off of that. That'll work.
Or just don't care about the lanyard loop. And
that's true. I mean, it's still the same size case as it was before, so it'll fit in that little coin pocket on your jeans, like just the same as the old one did. So if that's how you carry it, you don't need a lanyard.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts on the AirPods Pro. I'm excited to get them and try them out. We'll see how that goes. I was telling somebody, I can't remember who it was, but I am now basically fully sucked into the Apple ecosystem by having bought AirPods Pro. I've got an iPhone.
You are so deep down the rabbit hole, man.
I mean, I was going to have a Mac either way, no matter what phone I use, because that's just my preferred operating system, my preferred computer. I like it. But I've got the iPhone. It's my second iPhone. I've got an Apple Watch. I've now got AirPods Pro on the way. I mean,
you need an iPad and you're there, man.
Oh, we just bought the 9th gen, like the current $350 iPad not that long ago.
Oh, there you go.
I've had again, and that's again another one that I'm going to buy an iPad if I'm buying a tablet. It's not going to be. Fair. Yeah. I mean, my kids have Fire tablets, but they're kids. They don't need an iPad.
They don't need a good tablet.
Yeah, they don't need a good tablet.
It's okay if they have crap. That's fair.
So, I mean,
I guess Apple TV.
That's the one thing I don't have.
That's the one thing.
And I'm not going to buy because one, they haven't updated it it's turning into the Mac Pro at this point. They haven't updated it in years. And
no, hang on. They did update it a year and a half ago to the A10 Fusion processor, which, yes, I know is a really old processor at this point, but it was a significant update over the A8 that was in the previous version.
True. But I already have, my TV is a Roku TV. I have a Chromecast with Google TV plugged into that Roku TV that I very rarely use because I have a Roku TV that has an Apple TV app on it. If I want, I don't pay for Apple TV, but if I did, it's there. So I wouldn't buy the Apple TV itself anyways.
It is very, very, very much the case that unless you are subscribed to Apple Arcade and you really want to play games on your TV, there is no reason to buy an Apple TV. Buy a Roku. You get just as good of an interface, and you get Apple's TV app and like the ability to watch all of their crap. So like, what's the point of having an Apple TV at that point, unless you are playing arcade games on it? That's it. That's the only reason.
I will say the interface for the Apple TV is better than Roku, in my opinion, because the way they've changed the software stuff is better. Like it's got you can just select a show from the home screen and it goes to the app that you're watching it in. You can't do that on Roku. But if you want a cheaper way to do that, buy a Chromecast with Google TV because it's got nearly identical interface to Apple TV on that.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
That's my opinion. But yes, I am very far into this Apple ecosystem.
What's really interesting here, listener, is that you are hearing in real time the bit where I get demoted to, I don't know what I'm supposed to cover now, Linux, I guess? Because like you've got hands-on experience with more of Apple's crap than I do.
It's true.
Like I'm here with my Mac and my iPhone and my iPad and my Apple TV, but I don't have the watch. I don't have their headphones. And quite frankly, I'm probably not going to buy either of them in the foreseeable future. Like the watch, smartwatches just don't appeal to me. Right. I have no real need for a smartwatch. And the headphones, I've actually gotten to the point now where wireless earbuds offend me. I've gotten so annoyed with like the concept of, yes, the connection, even when the connection is working perfectly, it's still Bluetooth, and I'm just not getting as good of an audio experience as I could, versus the fact that cheap but good quality headphones with a wire on them are like everywhere, it sounds better. The audio quality is way better. And yeah, it's not as convenient, but I never use wireless earbuds out in the wild anyways. I just use them around the house or at work. And so it's just easier to have wired ones, and don't have to worry about charging them, don't have to worry about batteries, and I don't have to have in the back of my mind that like 5 years from now I'm going to end up throwing them away because the batteries are going to go kaput and there's no way to replace them. So yeah, I'm probably never going to buy an Apple Watch or AirPods, and now so Landen is more embedded into the ecosystem than I am.
Yep.
But I do have a gaming PC in the case from a Power Mac G5. So
yeah,
that's got to count for something.
You've got more individual Apple products than I do.
Yes. It's just the problem is that most of them are like a decade old or older.
Yes. I mean,
that's not a problem.
I've got my original MacBook from 2006 that I bought. I've got 2 iPad minis. I've got a Mac mini. I've got an MacBook Air. I've got my wife's AirPods, her iPhone, a new iPad, my iPhone, my Apple Watch, AirBud. I've got about 10 or so Apple products in my house at the moment.
I think I have 10 Apple products in this set of drawers sitting right next to me.
I mean, we get rid of our phones. That's the difference there, is we don't have our old devices in.
There's 2 laptops in there. No, 3 laptops in there. Oh, gosh. Yeah, so, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 in here. So that's just my laptop drawers. And I'm already up to like 7.
Yeah.
So, and over here is the phone drawer, and I've got, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 iPods. So, and those are all real, but here's the thing. They're all like 10 years old or older,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have an iPod video, or the 30 gig video somewhere as well. There's another one. And that does still work.
Those things, they last for a while. Nice thing about the iPod video is that if it does start having like the battery starts expanding or something like that, you can actually replace it. It's difficult, but you can replace it. iPod Nanos, nope. That is not an option, which is the thing I have learned because I have an iPod Nano with an expanding battery, and unfortunately, it's just toast. There's not really any. Once the battery has started to expand in those aluminum unibody iPod Nanos, you can't shove the guts out of them from the bottom anymore.
Yeah.
Because the battery is now taking up that space. Yep. And so it's just dead. You just can't do anything to. Anyways. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess I need to look more into Linux stuff, I suppose. I've got a Linux laptop. Like, that's another thing. My daily driver laptop is a Linux computer at this point. Whereas Landen at least has an old MacBook Air that he uses for that. So, wow.
I mean, overall, this shows that, it's what the podcast is about. It's about all platforms.
It's true.
I started on Windows everything. Now look at me. I've got a Pixel phone. I've got the Pixel Buds. So,
yeah, it's like, look, it's confirmation that we live by what we've been saying this whole time, listener. Never become so embedded in an ecosystem that you can't shop somewhere else.
It's getting hard for me.
It is getting more difficult for you. Yeah. Careful about that.
Yeah.
But that being said, I still look at all the new Android phones and think, yeah, I could switch back to that at some. Even the Samsung, like, if I were to switch, I would have a hard time choosing between a Pixel 7 and a Flip, because those folding phones from Samsung are freaking cool.
They do look pretty sweet.
And it's not ridiculously expensive at $1,000 for the Flip. I'm like, so,
no.
Like, yeah, I mean, so yes, I am fully embedded into Apple at the moment, but I'm buying all this stuff knowing full well that if I switch back, I could easily sell all this stuff really just perfectly fine, because, again, I'm that person. I can go back and forth. It's not that big of a deal.
Yep.
It's just, it will be a little more difficult because, yes, I am fully embedded into this ecosystem at the moment.
Yep. Yes. And in fact, speaking of never being so embedded in an ecosystem that you can't shop somewhere else, let's talk about the iPhone 14. Yeah. So, listener, the iPhone 14 is available in two sizes, with the Plus branding seeing its first showing since the iPhone 8. The iPhone 14 features a similar build to the 13 and carries over many of the last phone's features, though it does boast a slightly improved screen and a range of improvements to the camera to enable better low-light performance, sharper overall images, and smoother video capture. Perhaps most noteworthy for the iPhone 14 is what it doesn't have. However, a list that includes the updated A16 processor or a physical SIM card tray in North America. Powering the 14 instead of the A16 is the A15 from last year, specifically the version with 5 GPU cores from the iPhone 13 Pro. While this represents a very minor performance improvement over the iPhone 13, it certainly does result in a confusingly sparse list of upgrades over the last year. The iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max will feature a new main camera sensor with a significantly higher 48 megapixel resolution over last year's Pro. The apparent resolution for this sensor will continue to be 12 megapixels to dramatically improve the low light and color performance of the camera, but in some shooting modes, all 48 megapixels can capture independently for the best possible clarity. The screen also sees dramatic improvements, with a momentary peak brightness of up to 2,000 nits possible when outdoors, though the more common indoor peak of 1,600 nits will still enable stunning HDR content consumption. The screen also now has an always-on mode, allowing you to see a dimmed version of your customized lock screen without having to interact with the phone at all. The Pro phones do get the A16, which is now manufactured on a 4nm process for slightly better IPC and lower power usage, and did I mention that the notch is gone? In its place is a pill-shaped cutout for the Face ID sensors and front-facing camera that Apple has built a novel device notification system around. In a spectacular fit of Apple marketing, they named it the Dynamic Island. Both the Pro and vanilla iPhones feature updated sensors, enabling crash detection on your iPhone just like the Series 8 watch. Both series of phones will also be able to send text messages via direct satellite connection when there is absolutely no cell coverage. This service is apparently not going to be free, but 2 years of it will be included with the purchase of an iPhone 14 or 14 Pro. The vanilla 14 will start at $800, with the Plus at $900, the Pro at $1,000, and the Pro Max at $1,100. So, here's my thing with this, listener.
Here we go.
The Pro and Pro Max seem like pretty good phones. Basically, if you were in the market for an iPhone 13 Pro and you're still in the market for the iPhone 14 Pro, it's the same price as it was before, and it has some pretty significant improvements. The camera is a big upgrade. Honestly, they focused mostly on the main shooter for this one, but it does seem like there's going to be some pretty serious updates to the performance of that main camera sensor. So that's good. Also, the screen, like the always-on mode, I don't know, take it or leave it. I'd mess around with it for sure if I had the phone to see whether or not I liked it. But for some people, I know that's actually going to be really awesome, you know, in situations where they do have their phone kind of like sitting on a dock next to their computer and they just want to look at notifications as they pop up without having to like interact with the thing, or they use it to check the time, or they want to see their little, they're not called complications, they're widgets on the lock screen, you know, now that we have the ability to put those on there with iOS 16, stuff like that. It could be useful. And like just the brightness of the thing, like 1600 nits is like, I think 400 nits of brightness more than the possible peak brightness of the 13 Pro, which just makes HDR content that much better. And it actually ties the brightness performance, at least, of their professional level monitor. What did they call that thing? The super HDR, whatever Apple Pro Display thing. Pro Display XDR. That's it. Because extreme dynamic range. That's okay. Anyways.
Yeah.
It matches the brightness of that, peak brightness of 1600 nits. The 2000 nit peak brightness is only for outdoor use, only for like situations where you're in direct sunlight to make the screen visible. I suspect that it will not be able to sustain that brightness for very long at all, because that's going to heat the phone up really fast, and then it'll have to dim the screen, the entire screen, to keep from overheating and stuff like that. But it's just nice that it's there. You know, the A16 probably isn't going to be a dramatic improvement in performance, but it's more efficient, so slightly better battery life, and yada, yada, yada. The iPhone Pro seems like a perfectly fine upgrade. But the iPhone 14 is a turd. I hate it so much. Mainly because it just doesn't have a big list of upgrades over last year's phone, and the starting price for the line now is $100 more than it was before. The iPhone 13 mini started at $700. The 12 mini started at $700. The 11 started at $700. The XR started at $700. The 8 started at $700. They have had their $700 starting price all the way back to the iPhone 6, where it was $650. Okay? The line has always started at $700 for many, 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 many years. And with this crap tier upgrade where they added basically nothing useful to the phone, and they didn't even have the kindness to give us the new system on chip, it's $800 now. This is when you chose to jack up the starting price for your phones, Apple? Really? And so like, I'm at this point now where I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, I'll see what the new SE looks like when they release it next spring. But if that thing doesn't blow me away for $400 or $450, I gotta say that Asus, whatever, the Zenfone 9,
I can't remember.
was that the couple weeks back we talked about that? That thing is looking real nice right about now.
Yeah.
So I genuinely might ditch Apple just over the audacity of the iPhone 14. So
wow,
that's them phones.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd hear that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know, right? It's just bombshells all over the place. Landen's the new Apple guy. I'm apparently going to switch to Android. I don't know.
What is happening?
Pigs are flying.
I wanted to mention a clarification on that. So the 13 Pro display has 1000 nits brightness and 1200.
Oh, it's just 1000.
1200 peak.
Oh, okay.
So it's 600 more on the regular, and then a lot more for the peak. And I failed to mention this. The Apple Watch Ultra also has a 2000 nits brightness peak.
That's true.
which is freaking
Yes.
ridiculous on a watch. But it's awfully, it could be handy.
I mean, it makes a little bit more sense on a screen that small. It's the peak brightness of 2000 nits for like a phone scale. It's just wild. That is just a huge number, and it's like that's painful to look at. Like if you had it, and that's why they specified that that's the outdoor peak brightness. If you are indoors in dim light, the peak brightness is 1600 nits, which is really bright, but it's not going to hurt your eyes. If you're outside and your eyes are already adjusted to the bright light of the sun, then 2000 nits is not going to hurt your eyes. But if you were indoors with your eyes adjusted to a much dimmer light, and then they blasted you with 2000 nits of brightness, that would hurt. Like that momentary flash of light would be like, when you've got like a laser pointer and you just point it at your eyes and turn it on. Don't do that, listener, please. Like, for the record. But that's what it would be like,
Yeah.
Almost like starting a Bethesda game in the middle of the night. And you know what I'm talking about.
It's not just Bethesda, but yeah.
Yeah. I did that the other day, actually. That's why that rang a bell. I was like, I'm going to get in Doom Eternal. I just kind of turned it on, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yep.
Please
No,
stop.
It was actually back in the day, it was Microsoft Game Studios for me, because it was it was Age of Mythology. I would turn on Age of Mythology. It was pitch black. The Ensemble Studios opening cinematic would play. It was mostly black. It was fine. And then here's a bright white background. Thanks, Microsoft. Holy crap. Good times.
Yep.
But yes, I know you know what I'm talking about. We got this.
So I've got thoughts on these phones again, because I have thoughts. I'm the new Apple guy. I have to have thoughts on these.
Apparently.
So my thoughts on the 14 is it's basically an iPhone 13 Pro, but not as nice because it doesn't have a telephoto. The cameras are updated from the 13, but they're not 13 Pro level.
Much.
Yeah.
Nope.
And I did just look up, you cannot buy the 13 Pro phones anymore because they are not on Apple's website. So unless you're going to Best Buy or your cell phone carrier, there's not going to be those available anywhere for very long.
Yep.
For sure. So keep that in mind.
Yep.
If you were considering an iPhone 13, like if you were looking at the iPhone 14 or 14 Plus, the only reason to buy this is you want a bigger phone, but don't want the Pro. I get that. Or for some reason you have to have that satellite connectivity, which is cool, but again is not going to be used by, hopefully not going to be used by very many people, because that's the type of thing you use in emergency. That's why it's an emergency SOS is what they're calling it.
Yes.
So,
and to be absolutely clear, listener, this is not a convenient feature.
No.
This is not the kind of thing like, well, hey, free text messaging over satellites without... No. You have to stand in a clear area so that you have like a full view of the sky. Indoors, does nothing. Under trees, does nothing. And then it has a UI that will help you point your phone at the exact right patch of sky to get a weak connection with a satellite in orbit. And then you will be able to send really short text messages. And they were all like, holy crap, we got to say, we put a lot of effort and a lot of work into this, and short messages under ideal circumstances will send in less than 30 seconds.
Or
I'm
up
like,
to 3
what?
minutes sometimes.
Yeah, or up to like 5 minutes or something like that. And the whole time while it's sending, you have to stand there pointing your phone at a satellite. Like it's not convenient, and it's not the kind of thing that you will use regularly. It is a nice peace of mind to have, but I don't think it's worth paying $100 extra as the starting price for that peace of mind. Especially since for the vast majority of people, the peace of mind is just that you've got a phone and you have cell coverage basically everywhere you go in the world,
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge fan of the 14 or 14 Plus. I do like that they have that Plus model, because if when the 12 came out, they didn't have the mini. I know Caleb wouldn't have bought. He would have been mad, but I would have bought an iPhone 12 Plus because I wanted that bigger screen. I bought the 12, just the regular one, because I couldn't afford at the time the Pro Max, which was $200 more or $300 more than the regular 12.
I think it was $400 more.
Either way, it was a lot more money.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And the only reason I switched to a 13 Pro Max was because AT&T was giving me more money than I spent on my 12 to pay for it. So they were the dumb ones there. I benefited. So, and that's what I like, the bigger screen. So for me, if I were buying one right now and didn't already have a Pro phone, the 14 Plus would be what I would probably get. So that's the only reason I would recommend any of the 14 phones, is if you want the Plus, because you want the bigger display and you can't afford or don't need the Pro. But even then, it's
with the increase in the starting price, you are now looking at $900 to buy that 14 Plus. Which, like, to be absolutely clear, listener,
Pro Max.
I actually love the fact that they're calling it the Plus. The iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Plus, the branding return for that is actually super consistent and genuinely pretty surprising from Apple.
Yeah.
So, like, good job naming the thing the Plus. I was quite happy to see that. But if you just want a bigger screen, you can get a 13 Pro Max. I'll bet you can find a used one for about $900, if not less.
True.
Depending on where you get the thing from. So yeah, everybody who's updating from their 13, and in fact, if you just want the larger screen, you could get yourself a 12 Pro Max. And honestly, it's going to have a better camera than the 14 Plus. And the system on chip is going to be a little bit slower, but not a significant amount. You know, it would be an absolutely perfectly fine phone for you. And it's, yeah, like, I don't know. There's no circumstance that I can think of where I would actually recommend somebody buy the 14, because people are going to be like, well, but I just want the cheaper one. And I'll be like, understandable. You know what happened when they released these new phones? The 13 went down in price. You go buy a brand new 13 mini for $600. I'm like, that's not bad. If you want to buy a used one, you get a used one for less than that, quite a bit less than that. Or you buy an SE. If you don't really care about the form factor and you just want the processor, do that. Like, that's $430. Like, that's way cheaper. You know, just the $800 is just too much for this phone. It does not make sense at that price. It's awful.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on the 14 and 14 Plus.
Yeah.
Not the best option.
Nope.
The 14 Pro, on the other hand,
It's pretty good.
I do like a lot.
It's pretty good.
And surprisingly, my favorite new feature on the 14 Pro is not the cameras, but I do love the new camera. It's the first megapixel upgrade in an iPhone since the 5? 6?
I was going to say, it's been a really long time. I think it might be the 5S.
They've had a 12 megapixel camera for a long, long time. Now, they've upgraded those sensors and gotten better sensors over time, but it's always been a 12 megapixel for a long time. This new one, the main sensor is a 48 megapixel, and one thing that I thought was really cool that this now has the capability of doing is they have that 0.5 zoom, so the wide angle, the regular, or I guess the ultra wide, the regular wide, then the 3x telephoto lens. But with this 48 megapixel, they can zoom in at 2x, and it's technically not optical, but technically not digital. It's weird how they made it work, but it'll still be a cleaner picture than a digital zoom at 2x. So you're getting 4 different good quality zoom points from these lenses, and I like that.
Because it used to be that, like, Apple didn't actually show you, they showed you the 3x zoom for the telephoto, and then they showed you 1x for the natural zoom. And if you went to, like, you could zoom but from 1x to 3x, like, incrementally, but it would just zoom in on the picture. It would zoom in on the main shooter and for most of that until it got to 3x, and then it would switch to the telephoto. Yeah. And so what they're doing now is, if you are taking 1x, then what it does is it takes a 12 megapixel photo that programmatically combines groups of 4 pixels on the 48 megapixel sensor so that you get way better color performance, way better low light performance, and stuff like that. And then if you zoom to 2x, then it crops in on the center of the sensor and shoots it at native resolution. So you're still getting a native 12 megapixel image. It's just you're not using the programmatically combined pixels anymore. You're now using just the normal native resolution of the pixels. So yeah, so you're getting a native resolution image at 1x, 2x, and 3x, and 0.5x. It's actually a really kind of cool way to handle that. And Samsung wants to make fun of them. It's all like, oh yeah, we've got like our awesome 100x or whatever. It's like, Samsung, that's just fancy digital zoom. You're not fooling anybody. Calm down.
Yeah. Now,
settle down.
To defend Samsung a little bit, their digital zoom is better than anybody else's digital zoom.
Yes.
But if you get past 20 or 30 digital zoom on that thing, it's not worth taking a picture with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the 100x zoom is cool, and it's something like, look what my phone can do, and then you're never going to use it. But it's there. But going back to the iPhone one, so with that 48 megapixel sensor, you can now do ProRAW photos at 48 megapixels. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's going to take a lot of space up on your phone. But you could print a photo that's like, quite large and have it be really crisp and sharp and nice still from your phone. And that's cool.
In fact, 48 megapixels equates to approximately I think 4 feet high or something like that, like almost life size.
Yeah.
So obviously the sensor itself is way smaller than like a 48 megapixel camera in a DSLR or something like that.
Right.
But it's enough resolution that you could theoretically take some pretty significantly sized photos, blow them up from your iPhone, and actually have it be okay. It wouldn't look like crap. So that's cool.
Yeah. They also did point out that you can, I can't remember if this was a thing on the 13 Pros or not, but they mentioned you could do 4K video at both 30 and 24 frames per second. I don't remember exactly.
I think before it was limited to 30, right? They didn't have a 24 FPS shooting mode. And so this was basically a concession to the folks that actually want like a cinematic feel out of their iPhone videos, given that they've been marketing this thing as basically a pro video camera for years, despite the fact that it's an iPhone. Like, let's be honest. But it's little concessions like this and the ability to shoot in what's that format? Darn it.
Cinematic mode?
ProRes. Being able to shoot in ProRes and stuff like that, and being able to shoot at a native 24 FPS that just lends a more cinematic air to the resulting footage. And so, now you have the ability to, you can still shoot 4K 30, whatever, that's fine, but you can also do it in 4K 24 if you want it to just be a native cinema resolution or cinema frame rate. So,
so that's kind of cool. But all of that being said, my favorite feature on the 14 Pro is also the worst named feature on a phone, which is surprising because there's some horrible another bad name feature on both of these phones, or all 4 of these phones rather, is the photonic engine that they put into the processor to make for better photo. It's basically Google stole the better name for this. They have the Pixel Visual Core, which is actually a relatively cool name. Photonic engine is stupid, in my opinion.
It's silly.
But an even dumber name that they came up with for a much cooler feature is the dynamic island.
So dumb.
Now,
it's
listener,
so dumb.
What this is, the feature itself is really cool. So like Caleb said, they have that little pill-shaped thing to hold all the Face ID sensors and the camera. Now, another thing they did was it the dot projector is now behind the display, like underneath?
No, it's not the dot projector, it's the proximity sensor.
Proximity sensor is behind the display.
That tells when the thing's up to your head and turns off the screen. That's now behind the display.
And that's kind of cool. So it made it so it's smaller, which is nice. And it's got that little thing. And last week we mentioned this. We talked about this. Like, hey, what's the point of this? Because it's just, yes, it's smaller, but there's pixels above. It's basically a hole punch that's not a hole punch, and it doesn't do anything. But Apple went and appled the crap out of it and actually made it functional. And it's freaking cool. It basically takes like your notification tray and puts it on your home screen, but in a really dynamic. I hate that I'm using that word, but a dynamic and like feature rich way. It's so cool. So
it does.
Cool.
It does look really cool. It's honestly the kind of thing. So basically anything that would live in your notifications or some of the things that live in like your control panel, it's basically putting them up there next to the pill and taking your taskbar, like basically the space that they're saving by making the notch, quote unquote, much narrower and a little bit shorter. Instead of just giving that to you with like, hey, here's extra battery notifications or whatever, they're using that space to show you like, oh, you're on a phone call, instead of having like the little green phone over there. If you're like browsing through the rest of it, it'll show you that you're on a phone call. It'll show you that your microphone is being used, and then it's going to show you like information about your contact and the length of the call and stuff like that. And you can interact with it. It'll show your music playback controls and stuff will just be sitting up there kind of in your status bar next to the pill in a way that you can tap on if you want to enlarge it or if you want to interact with it. And these interactive notifications stack on top of each other in a way that is supposedly really intelligent and is supposedly going to feel very natural to like move into and back out of and switch between and that sort of thing. Obviously, we don't have a ton of hands-on experience with this. We just got to see Apple's promo video, which makes it obviously look as good as it possibly can. But it looks like a really interesting way to present you with more actionable information in a much smaller format than you had before, because they're also taking device notifications like, hey, your headphones just paired, and that sort of thing, which would pop up like it would toast an entire fetching notification at the top of the screen, which is kind of obnoxious. And instead, it's just going to pop up a little blurb next to your pill that'll be like, hey, AirPods or whatever. And it takes up way less space, doesn't distract you from what you're doing on your phone nearly as much or get in the way of content and that sort of thing. And I think it looks really cool. It looks like a pretty good, like it's a good implementation of this. And honestly, they've done it in a way that nobody else has even tried. Oh. And I think it's great. They're basically taking the pill, which is a shape that we've seen on phone screens on Android for years. And they're going like, yeah, but you know what? What if we actually did something with that? Like, what if we did something to make that cool? And that's what this is. And then they gave it to the marketing department that's responsible for calling a mouse that charges with a port on the bottom the Magic Mouse. And we got the name Dynamic Island crapped out the other end. So I think I agree with Landen. That is the dumbest name this year. Just out of all tech, Dynamic Island is the stupidest name this year. But the feature it's describing is actually pretty dope.
Yeah. And I actually have seen some hands-on videos with this. So people at the event got to watch or got to go and do a hands-on area. Yeah, they
got to mess around with it, yeah.
And there are a few different videos of people using this, and it does look really cool. I want to actually get my hands on a device and play with it and see if it looks as good. Because what I fear is going to be the case is because where the sensors are, there's no pixels. There's no display there. They can't just make that black. You're going to see sensors there. And so that's like, obviously the videos that they show, they're not going to, it's just going to be black part of the display is what it looks like. They're not going to show sensors, but you're probably still going to see sensors when you're using it. Now, how much those actually stand out, I don't know. I mean, they're pretty dark as it is right now on my phone. Like I'm looking at it right now with the screen off, and I can tell that there's sensors there. But, I mean, I'm about 2 feet away from my phone, and it's kind of hard to see. But I can still kind of see them in this lighting. But I
mean, I'm sitting here peering quite closely at the notch on my phone, and yeah, you can see them in the right lighting. It's the camera lens that's the most obvious.
Yeah.
And I think that you probably will be able to see the camera lens kind of floating in the middle of whatever is going on with the notifications on this. But I think it'll be fine. Like it's implemented in a way that is going to, in software, give you back screen real estate that was being used by notifications toasting down from the top of the screen and stuff like that. And it reminds me a lot of like when they finally switched the volume control on an iPhone, or the volume visualizer on the iPhone, from the Mac OS volume visualizer to like a little bar over by the volume controls.
Yeah.
Way better. Honestly, not sure why it wasn't that way from the beginning, but it was just the kind of thing. It's like, you know what? We can make a basic software tweak that is going to give you so much screen real estate back as a result. And this feels like kind of an extension of that mentality. It's like, yes, we can't give you back the screen real estate stolen by the Face ID sensors. We're trying. We're making it smaller. We're trimming it down. We're putting stuff behind the screen and stuff like that as much as we can, but we can't give it all back to you. However, we can take that space and kind of tweak it a little bit. The tiny bits of screen real estate that we've pried back by making the notch smaller, by putting a little sliver of screen between the Face ID sensors and the front-facing camera, stuff like that. We can kind of take all of that space that we've clawed back and turn it into a feature that is, in software, going to save you a bunch more space by getting rid of these notifications and interactive bits of the UI that were taking up a lot more space. So I think it's pretty cool. I would love to see what this looks like on... honestly, I saw a mock-up just before we started recording that somebody made of this. They called it the dynamic notch. Basically, it was this exact feature implemented around the notch on existing iPhones. And I was like, gall dang, why didn't they do that as well?
Yeah.
So I'd love to see this expand to more people. But they'll probably instead just expand the pill to more phones in the future and call that good. But I'm not calling it the dynamic island ever again.
No,
for the record, listener. This is just like the quote-unquote 10S and 10R situation. It's the XS, it's the XR, iPhone X. No, I'm never calling it the 10, okay? That's this. It's the same thing. I have told you it's called the dynamic island. This is the last time you will ever hear me call it that. It is the pill. For now and forever.
Even if it's called the dynamic pill, that's still a better name.
Right? Island. What the... Anyways, it's just goofy as snot. But that's Apple's marketing department for you.
Yeah. There's one thing that I wanted to mention, a lot, like going along the lines of how you mentioned like the volume or little symbol on the phone, is much better because it's moved to the side where right next to the volume rocker, which makes sense. This one of the coolest things I saw is now when you use Face ID, it doesn't pop up the little icon in the middle of the screen that your eyes are going to directly go to that and potentially lose connection with your Face ID's thing, because that's happened to me before. Now it uses that dynamic pill part and puts the Face ID icon right there. So you're going to continue to look directly at the camera, which is what you need to do in order for this Face ID to work properly. And I love that. Also, I haven't confirmed this, but I heard that Face ID now works horizontally.
Oh, dang. Really?
I
have not heard that.
I don't know. I've only heard it in one place, and it wasn't someone that used the device. So I'm not entirely sure. I hope that is the case, because that would be fantastic as well.
Awesome.
I'm not expecting that to be the case, but that would be fantastic. I mean, you can do that on the iPad, right? You can do bi-directional.
Yes.
So there's no reason they can't do it on the phone, in theory.
Yeah. So you can do it on the iPad, but also the iPad's notch. It's not actually a notch. The iPad's Face ID sensor is it's much bigger, larger and is configured differently. So I don't know.
So maybe not.
I don't know.
We'll have to see. But I heard it somewhere, but I'm not going to say where because I don't want to diss on these people that are talking about it in case that they're just making it up. But I'm hoping that does happen. But again,
that'd be nice.
This little pill feature, really cool. Really like it. That would be, personally, that's the reason I would buy an iPhone 14 Pro, was for that alone. Yes, the cameras are better than what I've got, but I don't care as much. My cameras are perfectly fine. They're really good. So getting the better cameras to me isn't a big deal, but this is freaking cool. That's why I'm not going to. I don't need to upgrade my phone. That's stupid. But this would be why if I did.
That's cool.
Listener, we're going to hear in a couple of weeks about how AT&T had some kind of really crazy deal.
You know, they
And
probably
now he's got an iPhone 14 Pro Max on the way.
I've purposefully not even looked because I'm sure there is. And I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it.
You say that.
We'll see.
You say that.
Yeah, I know. I said that last year, and then look what happened.
Yep.
True.
Well, listener, that's the event, the far out event. I remembered the name this time.
Hey, good job.
It was honestly pretty good event. I really liked a lot of the stuff that came out of it. Mostly iterative improvements for stuff like the watch and the headphones, but then some really cool stuff like, the pill and the whole like crash detection stuff and the Watch Ultra. Like, some cool stuff. And then there was the 14. iPhone 14 is a turd. I hate that thing. So don't buy that. If honestly, you want my buying recommendations right now, the 13 went down in price, and also you can buy used ones of those. You could buy a used 13 Pro for the same price as a brand new 14 Plus, and it's just a better phone in every way that matters. And even the bits of it that aren't better, like the processor, are the same. So, just don't buy the 14. There's no good reason. Let's send a clear message to Apple that we hate this kind of behavior. Let's make this the worst selling iPhone ever. I want them to have so much stock of this crap that for the first time in history, we see Apple actually put a sale on one of their devices.
It's not going to happen.
I know it's not going to happen, but gosh dang it, I can hope, okay?
They didn't put a sale on the Trash Can Mac Pro. They're not going to put a sale on a brand new iPhone.
Oh, you're right. Oh, you're so right.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I also wanted to mention that I personally think is dumb that everyone's been asking for, but this is my opinion. The always on display is something I've never used on an Android phone because, one, it took more battery. I think it'll be better on the iPhone, but obviously we'll have to wait and see on that. I do think it'll be better, but it probably will still use more battery because it's doing something with the display on all the time. I do like the implementation to an extent, but the problem is I think it's dumb that you're still seeing your entire wallpaper. It's like people that have been wanting an always on display have been wanting what Android has done, where it's just the clock and just your notification, and it's a black background with white text, because that actually does save battery to an extent.
On an OLED. Yeah.
On an OLED, which is what these phones are. So it makes sense to do it that way. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Again, this is my opinion. I would be turning that off immediately because I don't use it. I never used it on an Android phone. I wouldn't use it on an iPhone because, one, I have a watch. Two, I'm usually within touching distance of my phone. And when a notification comes in, my phone display turns on anyways. So,
yeah,
to me, it's not a big deal.
It's very much a case of the widgets on the lock screen that are essentially just watch complications that got copied over. It was basically like Apple's engineers at the same time went, well, we can put the same LTPO display tech in the iPhone as we have in the watch. And if we do that, then we've already got the software coded for the always on display. Let's just copy that over. This is very much a case of I feel like they went to implement a feature that is okay, people have been asking for it for years. Let's finally do it. But then they did it in the laziest way possible and just copied it over from the watch. And that's not how they should have done it, but they did. And
now, I will say, for a lot of people, there will be people that use this and really like it. Again, this is my opinion that I don't like it. That's just me. But this is also going to be for the majority of iPhone users could benefit from this, because the majority of iPhone users don't have an Apple Watch, for one, and also aren't sitting at a Mac computer during the day or all day or whatever, that they're also going to get their notifications on. So for those that just have an iPhone, that don't have an Apple Watch or a Mac, this could be beneficial. So I do get the them finally bringing it to the phone. I don't like the way they implemented it, and I wouldn't use it. But again, that's my opinion. A lot of people are going to like it. A lot of people are going to praise Apple for finally doing it. But whatever. It is what it is.
Yep. But there you go, listener. That's the event. I have no more news. Yes, there is more news in the tech world, and I guess now I need to start looking at Linux news or something. But
one more thing, because I'm the Apple guy. I have to have one more thing.
Gosh, dang it!
Wow,
he has taken over. He's taken over. It's
he
like
really
a
has.
queue in real time. Oh my heck!
And he just had a one more thing. Like, look at that.
He did.
And this is actually a good one more thing, better than anything Tim Cook's ever done.
The bar is low.
That's very true. Very true. I did like this event, and it was better than I was expecting it to be, because yes, they did have people in person in Steve Jobs Theater watching this thing. But the event itself was exactly how they have been the last 2 years. And I love that. It was just a movie. Even Tim Cook's part was a scripted part of the movie. And they even went more than I can't remember which event it was that they went around places throughout California and different places just in general. But then the last one for WWDC was more localized, and we were like, oh, they're just preparing to get back to their on-stage events and whatnot. That kind of sucks. Yeah. But no, this one, they went again to a lot of different locations off Apple campus, and I love that.
It had the fun transitions. It had all the stuff that we've really liked about Apple's pandemic events were still there.
Yeah.
And they just they had people in Steve Jobs Theater watching it on a movie screen.
Yeah.
And then after, they got to go back out to the demo area and actually play with the devices. Yep. So it's still worthwhile to have the press there at Steve Jobs Theater, but we just don't have to watch Tim Cook get on stage.
I will say that his was the worst part about the presentation.
Obviously, it's Tim Cook. Dude can't be charismatic in front of a camera to save his life. If that's what he would needed to do in order to have his job, he would have been fired before Steve even died. No, that would not have worked out. So
that being said, there was one other presenter that I was not a fan of. Now it was the lady that did the AirPods Pro presentation. Now, physically, presenting wise, she looked fine. She it was her speaking. It sounded like she was reading.
Right.
And
she was off of a teleprompter, but
but it legit sounded like she didn't look like she was reading. She looked like she was saying all these things, and it was she had memorized it, and it looked really good. But it just sounded like she was reading. And I almost thought, okay, maybe they recorded all this stuff and she's reading it post. But then I also heard that all the sound was done live.
Really?
They didn't do post audio stuff, even for her stuff where she was in front of a person jackhammering. That sound was done live, is what I've read somewhere.
That's
which is
wild
impressive,
because their audio is always flawless.
That's why I want to know what they're doing.
They were shooting people from drones on mountaintops, stuff like that. That audio that they captured, if that was done live, dang, they are doing some serious Hollywood type shiz with their audio capture and stuff like that. In fact, honestly, Hollywood doesn't even do that.
No,
Hollywood will typically, they'll just be like, we'll just record over it in post. Do whatever the heck you want with the onstage sound.
So that's why I thought maybe she was reading this post video and trying to make it match up, which wasn't good. She again, her presentation was perfectly fine. It just sounded like she was reading it, and I didn't like that. But Tim Cook was still worse, because it's Tim Cook. Yeah. He's not that type of person, which is fine. And it actually looked like he was going to fall over half the time, because his knees kept bending, and it looked like he was just going to lose it and fall over.
He just does this really weird bounce thing when he's trying to. It's like somebody told him, Tim, you need to keep moving. You can't just stand there stationary and stuff. You got to keep moving, or it looks really awkward. But nobody's been able to coach him in a way to move that doesn't also look awkward. I don't know. He's he's not Steve. He's not a presenter. That's not his jam. That's not his strong suit. And that's fine. We don't need that. I just wish that he would stop standing in front of the Tim, it's okay. You could just be the CEO. You don't also have to be the presenter on all of these events and stuff like that. Just make Craig head presenter, or, better yet, you've got enough money, hire somebody specifically to just host these events. Go like get Jimmy Kimmel or something, like have the comedians come in and host the events or something. Get Dwayne Johnson to come and host one of these events. I don't know, whatever. Just Tim, it's not working for you. It never has. It's better now that you're doing the pre-recorded stuff. It is better for sure. Yes. Thank you for continuing to do that, even when you're actually inviting press to Steve Jobs Theater. But still, like, you could just stop. We'd all be okay.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, that's my thoughts on the overall event. I did like that they kept the video.
Yes.
Because it's good shorter for one. Better presentations because it's all scripted and you can re-record stuff, and less pauses because, again, you don't have to wait for crowd clapping and stuff. And there may have been stuff like that, but
maybe for the Ultra, like people might have clapped for the Ultra.
I did hear a lot of people say that when the Dynamic Island name came up, there was an audible groan over the whole crowd. And I love that.
It's so bad.
Bad.
I have seen, look, Justine, no arguing against the impact that she has had on tech journalism, particularly in YouTube. And absolutely nothing that anybody can say is going to take away from what she has accomplished in the space. Massive respect to her. However, she's an Apple fangirl to a ridiculous extent.
Oh, yeah.
And even her initial impression of the Dynamic Island name was, wow, that's silly. She did tweet later after the event, like, actually, it's growing on me. And I'm like, Justine, it's okay to not like it. It's okay to not like a thing that Apple has done. I promise. And honestly, she probably does have a few things that she doesn't like about, Apple products that have been in the past or present or whatever. But it was just really funny to see that tweet. And I was like, you sound like you're being coerced or something. Like, is Tim standing there with a gun? No, you must tweet that you like the Dynamic Island name now or something like that. Like, it's okay. Blink twice if you need help. Like, I don't know.
I know what it is. If she wants to keep the I part of her name, she has to. That's the reason,
Oh my gosh, you're probably right. She just doesn't want to get sued. Oh, that makes so much sense. I'm sorry, Justine. I take back everything I just said. That's a very difficult situation to be in. Because she built her brand around that name, and then, Apple probably has had lawyers contact her and be like, better play nice.
Yeah.
Rough. That's rough. Well, anyways, I have no other tech news. I don't know if Landon's got other stuff, but I honestly didn't even look at pretty much anything else. I'm just like this is plenty. This is plenty.
It is a lot, yeah.
That is a lot. Well, Landon, do you have any tech news?
I do have two things that I wanted to mention.
Well, go for it.
Right before, or I think it was the day before Apple's event, Google announced that their Pixel event is going to be October 6th. So we have a couple weeks to plan for that. So we have that to look forward to. I mean, we already know most things about the Pixel phones. They've already shown them off. There's already unboxing videos happening elsewhere around the world because that's Google and that's what happens. But we will officially learn everything about the Pixel 7 phones and the Pixel Watch at this event. So we will cover that when it happens in a few weeks. Also, YouTube TV is now going to be getting 5.1 audio on Apple TV and Fire TV devices. So,
nice.
If you are someone that uses either of these devices and have a 5.1 surround system and are using YouTube TV, all, two of you maybe that could, implement this, there you go. It's now
I'm
available.
Actually kind of baffled because 5.1 audio has been embedded into broadcast TV signals for 30 plus years.
Yeah. I mean,
like YouTube, what the heck?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of TV shows and stuff like that don't actually have their sound encoded for 5.1 audio. And so if you're listening to it on a 5.1 system, it either comes out as just straight up stereo, or more likely your amp is doing some kind of like, okay, I'm going to split out the side channels and here's the center channel, and does some programmatic stuff to make it feel a little bit more like 5.1, but
Right.
it's not, you know? That's how it is for most TV shows and that kind of thing, and like sports. But it's always like, you know, you've been able to like get movies broadcast like on NBC with 5.1 audio since the 90s. So wild. That's pretty weird. Okay.
Now, I think the main benefit for this is going to be if you have YouTube TV and you are also using YouTube TV to subscribe to things like HBO Max and whatnot, because you can get those bundled and it's implemented into the same interface and whatnot.
Right.
That's where that's going to benefit. I don't know why you would do that, because you could just get HBO Max as a separate thing and already have this. But, you know, if you didn't do it that way, then there you go. Again, all two of you that this applies to are going to benefit. But that is all my news for this week.
Nice. I'm actually excited to see what they do with that Pixel 7.
Yeah, I do like the Pixel 7 phones. I wasn't a huge fan of the 6. I mean, it's a good phone, but it wasn't a massive upgrade. The biggest thing was the camera bar was cool. The cameras were a little better, but I'm very interested in the second generation Tensor chip to see what improvements come from the first. And then, you know, obviously to see if they can release a phone that doesn't get really buggy after 3 months. Also, that's been a while since that's happened.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm actually a little interested in the new Pixel phones, given how crap the iPhone I was going to be buying is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, over in Microsoft's world, really, they're just still trying to spend $70 billion on on a ABK, I believe is what they call Activision Blizzard King. So, still trying to do that. Yep. I don't really want to get too much into it just because, yeah.
We've already said what needs to be said.
Yeah, that's still happening. So, we'll kind of move on. I guess, let's talk about some Halo. Apparently, dear listener, if you've probably heard this, but because a lot of outrage has happened with Halo recently, because they decided to cancel the Halo Infinite campaign split screen co-op.
Oh, what?
So you can still do network co-op, but the split screen aspect of it, they really haven't said cancel. They just said they're moving teams. The team that was working on that to have more resources for the new season. They added another roadmap. They said, hey, we're going to have to extend this next season. We need more time. We're pushing it until season 3 is going to be on March. To put this in perspective, Diablo Immortal came out later. Diablo Immortal is now in season 4. and Halo is still in season 2. So,
oh man,
lots of, but I mean, 343's had a lot of shakeup with. I mean, Jason. Is that his name? Jason Statement? No. What is his name? I can't think of his name.
I don't even know who you're talking about.
So he was an original developer from the new Halo. They brought it back.
Huh.
Joseph Statement. Is it? Dang it! I can't think of his name. Anyway. So he's the head of 343 right now, and there's been a lot of, well, quote unquote firings or people leaving to go to another, job for creative differences, things like that. So this is kind of an unnecessary evil, or a necessary evil, if you will, that to try and push this forward, get it done. Not a lot of people like it because people want their content and they want to play Halo, but obviously they got to do what they got to do. So.
Yeah.
Sucks, but what's really funny about that is they said you can't do it, but you can actually glitch your way to do it. You can actually get on YouTube and do this, even on the OG Xbox. people have been doing split screen. They're like, this plays fine. We don't know why or what's up. But yeah. So if you want to take a look at that, you can. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on. A lot of stuff. Basically, just people are really upset because they promised split screen and they said they couldn't deliver it. But what do you do?
Yeah. Oh, that's rough.
It is. I mean, a lot of people associate playing Halo split screen, so I get it. So we'll see. I mean, they're just going to take more time and see what they can do. And I mean, there's a lot of hate back out there because people are just like, okay, just take Halo away from 343 and give it to another developer.
Yeah, that's the obvious solution.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to get too much into that because that's just no.
Yeah.
Moving on, some more. Speaking of games that have big turmoil but are starting to do better. I don't know. That was a terrible segue. Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh, yeah. That's a thing.
They are doing an update, which is going to bring 60 frames per second on the Series S. They're also going to do cross progression, which means so if you were playing on the PC, you can actually move your save to the Xbox or vice versa, things like that. So, or if you played on the Xbox and you wanted to move over to the PC, you could do it. A couple things you do need to know about this update or this new expansion that'll come after this, because they did release saying that we're going to have another expansion called Phantom Liberty. This expansion will not release on the original Xbox One as well as the PS4. So they are moving on into the new gen with this next expansion. So it will not release on the Xbox One, One S, One X, or the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro. So a couple things to note. So that's probably why they put that cross progression, because they're like, hey, if you want to move your save. So I figured that's something I still haven't hopped into and played, but I figured a lot of news for that better make people understand that. Okay, let's talk about hardware. Microsoft reveals that the Xbox Elite Wireless Controller Series 2, the white model, which is also called the Series 2 Core, is going to be available. This is just a better Series 2. So originally they released the Xbox Elite Controller Series 2 to terrible reviews because lots of things would break, lots of things. It's very modular, if you will. You can replace your joysticks, you can replace a lot of things. But they are going to release this one, which is actually a little cheaper, which is $129.99. The difference is this one just doesn't come with the carrying case, the charging dock, classic thumbsticks, all the little accessories. But you can actually buy that later for $60, which makes it the same price. But they have said that they have confirmed that this Elite controller is going to be a better controller and everything, and you can pre-order it. So, yay! Okay. Everyone is actually ranting and raving about this. They seem to be very hyped, the people that have messed with it, so that say, yeah, this is a way better controller. So, good news. I've never used an Elite controller. I've been tempted to get one, but I don't know. Might mess. We'll see. But I'm assuming this is a response to PlayStation doing their DualSense Edge, which is their Elite controller, basically. So they're like, oh no, we got to send this out. So, yeah. All right, let's move on. So there's a new update on Xbox, which I think is actually really nice. The new update adds noise suppression for Xbox Party Chat. So you can actually individually go into someone in there and say, hey, I want to kind of do a noise suppression. Basically, it'll remove background noises, including gamepad clicks, breathing, and music to help your teammate hear you better. Things like that. So,
right.
Sweet. Which is good. That's probably a good thing because now it'll be good because I've never had that issue really with Xbox Party Chat, but I'm assuming this might also help the people that are going to be in Discord when they do link everything from Discord as well as Xbox Party Chat. So probably a good feature there too. So they are going to release a refreshed Xbox home screen again. So they're trying to rearrange it, make it look better, make it look nicer. Cool. I mean, if you want to get an insider and kind of mess with this, they are setting it out to the alpha skip ahead ring. That's the ring that they called for it. So take a look at it, see what you think. It looks okay. I mean, cool. You know, people like new flashy stuff like that. So
yeah, this definitely feels like one of those things, though, and because I hear about this happening, and I think about a conversation that I had with a professional UI designer one time, where he's all like, changing something to make it better is good. Changing something just to change it is worse than leaving it the way it was. Like,
yeah,
it's just, you should never change something just for the sake of changing it. It's always a bad idea. Like, it's always worse. And so I always wonder, it's all like, Microsoft, are you really rearranging this because it's going to make it better? Or are you just rearranging it because shiny? And that's actually how I feel about Windows 11 as a whole, come to think of it.
I was going to say, that sounds like Windows 11.
Yeah.
And that may be
really
it, that they want it to be coinciding with Windows 11. I don't know.
Yeah. You know what? This UI designer I talked to used to work for Microsoft, and he quit. I wonder if maybe stuff like this was the reason why.
Could be. Yeah. I don't know. I never had a problem with it, so it's very possible that the change, Microsoft is known to do that. I mean, Windows 8 and the Windows Phone literally looked like the same thing. Those tiles, things like that. So I could see this maybe hinting at that. But if you want to hop in and check it out, why not? I'm not going to. To me, it's not broken. So
yeah,
But there are people that want more of that variety. So if it gives you an option to do that, then okay, well, that's cool. But yeah, so that's pretty much all the news that I have that I wanted to mention. I know that Microsoft will be at the is it the Japan gaming? In Japan they have a gaming thing going on next week, and so I'm sure we'll hear some stuff. Microsoft did say that they are going to be there, so it'll be interesting what they do, or if they're just going to talk Kojima. I don't know. We'll see what's going on there. So we'll expect that for next week. Yeah. I mean, I guess we could also say be prepared this next month for games and more games. It's going to be hitting pretty hard. I mean, what's the first one coming up? Overwatch 2?
Very beginning of October for Overwatch 2, as I recall.
Yeah, Overwatch 2, God of War's coming out in November. That's the top of my head, but I know this is where all of a sudden these big games are going to start rolling out. So be prepared. We'll be talking about them. I will say this, though. The games with gold, Microsoft is still doing that. And there is one game that I would recommend doing. It is an Xbox 360 game, but it is Portal 2. If you have Xbox Live Gold, not even Game Pass, just the gold, you can get Portal 2 for free if you have not played this game.
Yeah. Why haven't you played this game, listener?
Just saying, this is a good one. I mean,
it's one of the greatest shooters, one of the greatest first-person games ever made, just ever. So play it.
So I did want to mention that. So that's really all the news that I do have. And I think that's about it, unless Landen randomly has one more thing.
I already did my one more thing.
I know. I figured. Might as well ask, right? All right, dear listener. If you want to get a hold of us, you can at our Calling All Platforms website, as well as our social media. If you also want to support us, you can at our Patreon. If you want to take out or take a look at any videos, you can at our YouTube channel, Calling All Platforms Games. Well, Calling All Platforms Tech. Sorry about that. A little jumbled there. All right, dear listener, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.